We all grew up watching our favorite TV shows. The best part of coming back after a long, hard, stressful day of second grade was just turning on the TV and watching something for hours. We would just see the bright colors and the animated characters and be satisfied. For some of us, this still may be the case, but for others, we realize now, reminiscing our past, that a small proportion of these TV shows may divulge something bigger than we know. Hi, my name is Fizza, and I'm here to talk about something extremely important. Winnie the Pooh. And yes, you heard me correctly. Winnie the Pooh, a classic written by A.A. Milne and published in 1926, is a collection of stories for his young son, Christopher Robin. These stories quickly prospered. According to Britannica, 35,000 copies in the UK and over 150,000 copies in the US have been sold. But not only are these stories family favorites, but they may reveal an insight into each character and the internal struggles that they endure. Nobody is stainless, not even our role models that we grew up watching. But the reality is that our role models should not be faultless, because what this does is set an inaccurate depiction of what we are like and what we're supposed to be like. Human nature propounds forward the fact that yes, we make mistakes because we are not quintessential beings. We are not manufactured products who follow a guide on how to function. But what we are is an aggregation of people who have the capability to love and accept each other for our faults and imperfections. If you don't believe me, let's take a look at the lives of Winnie the Pooh and his friends, our childhood role models, the perfectly imperfect. Winnie the Pooh, an innocuous bear who really just loves honey. He spends most of his time eating honey, looking for honey, and even just thinking about it. In essence, he seems to be infatuated with the idea of honey and is willing to do anything just to get it. This obsession shows signs of impulsivity like that of OCD, Obsessive compulsive disorder. According to the World Health Organization, OCD is one of the top 20 causes of illness-related disabilities affecting individuals from the ages of 15 to 44 years. 1 in 100 children are affected by this disorder, and so some of us who watch Winnie the Pooh and grew up watching Winnie the Pooh may even be able to relate to his tendencies. Some of us need Winnie the Pooh. Piglet, the apprehensive little pig that is Winnie the Pooh's best friend. This perplexed pig seems to overanalyze every situation and questions all of Pooh Bear's decisions. Should we do this? Are you sure? What if it goes wrong? These questions embody Piglet based on his personality and leave him feeling perturbed all the time. And the sense of trepidation that he faces can all be seen as symptoms of generalized anxiety disorder. The National Institute of Mental Health mentions how 2.2% of all adolescents are experiencing this disorder. That's 154 million adolescents all over the globe. And so some of us who express symptoms of generalized anxiety disorder and grew up watching Winnie the Pooh can indeed see that Piglet may represent a larger constitution of people who share similar experiences. And so some of us need Piglet. Tigger, everyone's favorite. He was always full of energy, full of laughter, and full of charisma. But the thing is, Tigger seemed to be distracted by the smallest of things, and his impulse to act without thinking can be seen as symptoms of ADHD, attentive deficit hyperactivity disorder. Based on research done by the ADD Resource Center, Tigger's predicament regarding focus is one that affects 6.4 million children from the ages of 4 to 17 within the United States. And what this statistic tells us is that ADHD predominantly affects children who are the target demographic for Winnie the Pooh and his collection of tales. And so, some of us need Tigger. Last, but certainly not least, Eeyore. Gloom and grief consumes this poor donkey. His house built of sticks is constantly being torn down and takes a lot of time and effort to rebuild, possibly even symbolizing his weak self-esteem. surrounded by dark clouds, presents his desolate, pessimistic mindset, and his classic catchphrase, "Thanks for noticing," illustrates his lack of self-worth and appreciation. All these symptoms and characteristics can lead to the conclusion that Eeyore may have depression, which, based on research done by the World Health Organization, affects 300 million people everywhere. Depression has shown its prominence within high schools. In fact, I can say that I know several people in my life that actually experience this disorder. And so this comes to prove that mental health disorders may have been much more common than we may have assumed in the past. And so, some of us need Eeyore. Now, you are all probably sitting here contemplating why I have just gone through an in-depth analysis of the perception of each character from Winnie the Pooh. Well, to answer your question through another question, what is one thing all these characters have in common? Mental health disorders. Johns Hopkins Medicine mentions how 26% of individuals 18 and older in the United States are affected by mental health disorders. And so what this statistic shows, and the many mentioned before, is that children, adolescents, and adults are all affected by mental health disorders. So why are we as a society prohibiting the education of mental health for our children who experience essentially the same thing as us? How do we change that? Well, the answer is plain and simple: awareness. The feelings of shame that we emit for expressing our emotions due to society's pressure of always forcing us to stay blissful must be obliterated, because mental health is like a child. We cannot control it, and we cannot predict its actions. All we can really do is nurture it. In fact, someone very close to me once said, "I wish I knew what I was going through." Just think for 1 second. Imagine someone you love not being able to vocalize the internal pain that is consuming them because, frankly, they don't even know what it is. Alone, angry, afraid? Just think for 1 second. Don't you think that if we grew up with more characters that express symptoms of mental health disorders, it would have easy explanation of what mental health is? A simple, "You are not alone. You have Winnie the Pooh and Piglet and Tigger and Eeyore and so many more just like you," would have changed so much more than we even realize. So start now. The early bird gets the worm. So the earlier on we educate our children about the basis of mental health, the more likely they are to receive the worm, which is the satisfaction of being able to deal with predicaments that may affect their own mental health in the future. I recently read an article published by the Teachers College, Columbia University, which helped to prove that children are more susceptible to learning new information. The article explicitly stated that kids have minds that are designed to learn, and adults have minds that are designed to perform. What this indicates is that by teaching our children about the notion of mental health, it gives them the chance to be able to perform in the future and act upon possible complications that may affect their health in the future. Because mental health is something that must be understood before it can even be analyzed. The takeaway is that awareness equals absorption. Increasing media awareness and representation of mental health disorders helps to ease the explanation of what it is and allows our children to absorb relevant information that will help them in the future. Winnie the Pooh and his friends made our childhood as sweet as honey. But what they also did was help us see that mental health is something we all possess and should not be a taboo subject, because we need to learn how to look after it. So, let's carry on his legacy. Thank you.